But honestly, my biggest hope moving ahead is that we find some genuine tranquility within our borders. We desperately need more compassion in how we address one another, especially when debating difficult subjects. Yet, right there on the global stage of the Australian Open, Coco Gauff faced a loaded political inquiry that 99% of pros would have sprinted away from. She didn't retreat to the safety of a non-answer, she stood her ground and addressed it head-on. This 21-year-old refused to dilute her emotions, and her raw honesty is currently sending shockwaves through social media feeds everywhere. Her commentary regarding the nation's present atmosphere has sparked a massive dialogue, with responses flying in from every conceivable angle. Before we dissect Gauff's words, I need to hear your thoughts below. Is it fair to demand political takes from athletes during pressers, or should they have the right to stick strictly to the game? Okay, let's set the scene for you so you understand the gravity of this moment. Gauff had just finished completely dismantling Olga Danilovic down in Melbourne, cruising to a victory with a score of 6-2 in roughly 1 hour and 17 minutes. It was a surgical, dominant performance, precisely the caliber of play you anticipate from the number 3 seed. She strolled into the media room, likely bracing for the usual inquiries about her service game, footwork, or strategy for the next round. However, the opening curveball thrown by a journalist wasn't about tennis at all. It was a direct probe concerning President Donald Trump and the condition of the United States 1 year into his returning administration. She began by acknowledging her history, noting that her stance has always been public, but admitted that right now, the conversation leaves her feeling something else entirely. She confessed to feeling genuinely drained by the topic, emphasizing how heavy the burden is when navigating this reality as a Black woman. She spoke about the toll of existing in this country, enduring the digital toxicity, and watching vulnerable communities suffer the consequences. It's the realization that her power is often limited to donating funds and using her voice, actions she strives to take whenever possible. Ultimately, her prayer is that, as the days pass, society evolves beyond this current friction and continues the march towards something better. Let that sink in for a second. This was the opener, not the third query after easing her in with match stats, nor a topic hidden halfway through the session. The absolute first words out of that reporter's mouth were, "You are typically quite outspoken regarding political matters, and I am curious how you feel about the state of the U.S. 1 year into the second Trump administration." Now, realize that the vast majority of sports stars would hit the panic button right there. They would pivot to a vanilla script about remaining locked in on the tournament, avoiding policy talk, and respecting everyone just total white noise. It's the classic public relations safety net that conveys zero substance. But Coco? She engaged with the premise and refused to stifle her thoughts. She led with the acknowledgement, "I think I've already stated my opinions in the past on how I feel about it." And she's right. Gauff has never hesitated to broadcast her political stance or champion causes related to social justice. She has tackled systemic racism, gun control, and women's rights subjects that many of her peers treat as radioactive. Therefore, you can't say this inquiry appeared entirely out of thin air. She has deliberately curated an image as an icon, willing to leverage her spotlight for matters far greater than a tennis match. She mentioned sharing a clip of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. just the day prior, emphasizing the need to press onward even when the waters aren't as still as she would wish them to be. However, she then pivoted to a sentiment that was truly captivating. She confessed, "I feel a bit fatigued talking about it just because of the fact that it is hard." Note that choice of word, fatigued. Frankly, that might be the most human and resonant statement a sports figure has uttered regarding politics in ages. Because let's be real, it is draining, particularly when you are a young Black woman perpetually expected to be the voice for millions while simultaneously battling for championships on the world tour. Gauff went on to express her vision for the future. She hopes for a nation defined by deep peace and a culture of kindness in how we navigate these divisive topics. That might sound like a standard diplomatic reply, doesn't it? But then she drilled down into the gritty details. She highlighted the specific struggle of being a Black woman in America, witnessing the online hate and the impact on marginalized groups, while knowing her tools, donations, and speech are her only weapons. That segment right there? That is the crux of her response. She isn't hiding behind fluffy buzzwords about unity the way elected officials tend to do. She is explicitly highlighting her lived reality and the uphill battles facing disenfranchised groups across the nation. Make no mistake, that is far from neutral. It is a sharp, deliberate critique of the prevailing political atmosphere and the people bearing the brunt of it. She concluded with a wish, stating, I just hope that as time continues that we can reach a state where we're not currently in and we keep moving forward. Referencing that clip of Dr. King. Reflecting on Dr. King just yesterday, the message was clear. We have to keep pushing ahead, even when the waters are rougher than I would prefer them to be at this moment. It is really about the broader mission of leaving this planet in a better state than we found it. Word from the U.N.C.F. is that you have dropped another significant contribution to H.B.C.U.S., marking your second consecutive round of giving. Could you elaborate on why this mission resonates so deeply with you? Absolutely. It holds a massive place in my heart. Honestly, if the Pro Tour was not my life, walking the campus of an HBCU would have been my dream. My roots run deep there on both sides of the family. Both of my grandmothers are alumnae, and I have an aunt and uncle who also walked those halls. I grew up immersed in that culture, sitting in the stands at the classics, soaking it all in. So, championing this, particularly within the tennis world, felt essential. It often feels like HBCU tennis programs are left starving for the financial backing they truly deserve. My goal is to constantly elevate those around me, just as I touched on earlier, specifically regarding the countless individuals who find themselves pushed to the edges of society, ignored by the mainstream, and left to fight battles without the resources they desperately require to survive. I am talking about those marginalized communities, offering my resources wherever I am able to make a tangible impact. My hope is that these funds reach the students who are most in need. Actually, I know they will, and I am thrilled to make this happen for 2 years running. We need to peel back the layers here because this situation is incredibly dense with meaning. To start, the very existence of these inquiries highlights exactly where she has staked her claim in the public eye. Gauff has evolved far beyond simply being someone who swings a racket for a living. She has transformed into a beacon for a fresh generation that demands their sports icons champion real-world issues. She leverages her spotlight to fight for her convictions, and the price of admission is facing hard-hitting political queries right after match point. However, this is where the narrative gets thorny. Gauff is only 21 years of age. She can scarcely rent a vehicle in certain jurisdictions, yet she is expected to dissect American geopolitics on a global platform while the sweat is still drying. The weight of that expectation is absolutely crushing. Veterans have had 30 years to curate their image. Gauff is navigating this minefield live, figuring out who she is as a human and a competitor simultaneously. Her admission of feeling fatigued speaks volumes about her internal state. It reveals the emotional tax she pays. It is not a signal of apathy or a dismissal of the problems at hand. She is expressing that the relentless demand to pontificate, justify her stance, and carry the weight of entire demographics is draining her dry. That reaction is entirely valid, particularly when you remember she is juggling all of this heavy scrutiny. She shoulders this burden while simultaneously battling to capture Grand Slam titles and defend her status among the global elite. It is fascinating to observe how she anchored her verbal response directly to her tangible deeds. She cited her philanthropy and advocacy, which segued perfectly into the query regarding her recent $150,000 gift to the United Negro College Fund. This marks the second year in a row she has committed a colossal sum to bolster the HBCU student body via the Coco Gauff Scholarship Program. She is not bluffing when she claims to walk the walk. She is investing serious capital into the movements she holds dear. The HBCU contributions carry extra weight because Gauff's lineage is intertwined with historically black colleges and universities. Both of her grandmothers were students at HBCUS, alongside other kin. She confessed that had tennis not been her destiny, she would have relished the chance to enroll in an HBCU personally. This is not a calculated PR move thrown at a dartboard. It is deeply intimate. It is about sustaining the very pillars that have championed black communities for generations and persist in that mission today. Gauff noted that tennis squads at these schools are frequently starved of necessary budget, which drives her decision to funnel her aid specifically to them. Her scholarship initiative has already changed the lives of 10 students, and she prays it provides aspiring black athletes the security they need to hunt down their ambitions. That represents the type of precision giving that generates real impact, rather than just scribbling signatures for tax deductions. However, we must circle back to the Trump inquiry, as that is the story dominating the news cycle. The digital response has been predictably chaotic. A segment of the public is lauding Gauff for her courage to vocalize her reality and wield her influence beyond the court. They view her as the archetype for rising competitors who refuse to silence their moral compass. They respect her refusal to shy away from politics, even when knowing it could jeopardize her fan base or lucrative endorsements. Conversely, there is a vocal faction insisting she ought to stick to her forehand and remain silent, arguing that her youth disqualifies her from political discourse, that sports figures should remain neutral, and that she is being accusations of being anti-American, and the venom typically spit at black icons who dare to possess a mind outside the arena. But let's cut through the noise for a second. Coco wasn't walking into an ambush blind. She saw the crosshairs the moment the question was raised. From the front lines of the racial justice marches to her pleas against gun violence, she has never bitten her tongue. She fully anticipates the firestorm every time she speaks, yet she grabs the microphone anyway because silence isn't in her DNA. Dropping Dr. King's name into the mix was no accident either. She teased the theme on her social media hours prior, weaving his legacy of resilience into her narrative of pushing through the chaos. It is a calculated move to stand shoulder to shoulder with the giants of the civil rights crusade. There is zero ambiguity about whose torch she is carrying or the history she represents. What separates Coco from the pack is that she refuses to play both sides of the net. She isn't curating a safe, corporate-approved version of activism to keep sponsors happy while saying absolutely nothing. She speaks her raw truth, and that authenticity hits home for a generation sick of robotic, sanitized press releases. However, we have to spotlight the pressure of wearing the crown of American tennis. The media isn't probing her just for clicks. They press her because she is the walking embodiment of the nation on the global scene, a young black icon disrupting a game built on white tradition and wealth. Her very existence on center court shatters the old archetypes of what a champion looks like. It is mind-blowing that she had to address the State of the Union before anyone even asked about her backhand. Her performance against Danilovic was surgical, claiming 75% of second serve returns. Breaking serve at will, she is now 14-0 in Grand Slam second round since 2022, a staggering record. She has punched her ticket to round 3, where she will square off against her compatriot, Hailey Baptiste. That dominance should be front-page news, yet the political circus steals the spotlight simply because it is Coco. Her athletic genius often takes a backseat to her status as a social warrior, which is a heavy burden to bear. It grants her a megaphone to champion the causes that keep her up at night. But it also denies her the luxury of just being an athlete. Every move is dissected under a microscope. Her admission of fatigue was striking a raw acknowledgement of the emotional tax she pays. She isn't feigning invincibility or acting like carrying the weight of the world is a breeze. She confesses it drains her soul, yet she persists because the mission outweighs the cost. Contrast her candor with the standard playbook, used by most pros who dodge hard questions. They retreat to the safety of focusing on the game, which is fine if that is truly where their head is at. Activism isn't a requirement for the job, but Coco has charted a divergent path. She views her fame as a duty and accepts the chaotic noise that accompanies that conviction. The context is crucial here, landing exactly 1 year into the second term of the Trump administration. The journalist set the trap explicitly, fishing for a soundbite on the current volatility. Coco delivered, but bypassed the rage bait, offering a response that was poised, reflective, and authentically calm. Naturally, the internet responded with its usual toxic, chaotic energy. Half the timeline hails her as a hero, while the other half brands her a fool. Pundits from both extremes are weaponizing her words to fuel their own agendas. Meanwhile, Coco is simply trying to win championships while staying faithful to her conscience. The detail everyone seems to conveniently forget is her youth. At 21 years old, most kids are finding themselves not defining national policy on a global broadcast. The reality that she is. Navigating this minefield with such elegance is nothing short of miraculous. Love or hate her stance, you cannot dismiss the powerful bridge she built between her identity and this historical moment. This is not some distant academic lecture on policies or hypothetical theories. She is pouring out raw, lived truths that she sees with her own eyes every single day. We are talking about the relentless digital bullying and the brutal targeting of vulnerable groups on the fringes of society, that crushing weight of helplessness, where writing checks and raising your voice feels like screaming into a void. It hits home, and it cuts deep. And precisely because of that raw vulnerability, her words struck a powerful chord that echoed with millions of hearts around the world. Looking ahead, The big question is whether other stars will take the baton and embrace this bravery, or if they will retreat back into the comfortable safety of silence. Historically, the tennis court has been a place of quiet neutrality, broken only by legendary titans like Billie Jean King and Martina Navratilova, who dared to rebel. Gauff is clearly carving out her legacy right alongside those icons, proving she has the spine to stand tall even when the heat turns up and things get awkward. As the Australian Open rages on, keep in mind that she is still hunting down that championship trophy with fierce determination. However, that one explosive press conference guarantees her journey here is no longer just about forehands, backhands, and scores. Like it or not, she has transformed into the face of modern athlete activism, reigniting the fiery battle over whether the worlds of sports and politics should ever collide. And that is the undeniable reality of the situation. Coco Gauff faced the fire without flinching, confessed her soul-deep exhaustion from the constant fight, yet still drew a line in the sand for everyone to see. If you are hungry for more of this high-stakes drama from Down Under and beyond, crush that like button and hit subscribe right now.